So something really significant is happening right now, and I think we all have to understand it and pay attention to it. Maybe, hopefully you've had some exposure to Bitcoin and to perhaps other cryptocurrencies like Ethereum or Litecoin, and I think the way that most people are thinking about this is just as an asset, as a way to invest your money and to grow your wealth. But I think what's really important is to understand that this movement is not, it's a movement, it's not an investment tool. Something really huge is happening. And what's happening is a fundamental shift from a centralized economy, a centralized model of structuring society, to a decentralized model. So what I mean by centralized is the way that things are, the way that things have been for most of our lives, is that we, as humans, we interact with institutions. We interact with our schools as a central authority. We put money in banks, which is a centralized authority. We deal with the government and the tax system, the laws of the government. When we shop at a retailer. We eat at chain restaurants sometimes. So we're dealing not with other people as the primary means of interacting with the world or with the economy. We're dealing with institutions. And along comes Bitcoin, which came around about 10 years ago. And by the way, if you were to invest $100 in Bitcoin in 2011, you'd have something like $500,000 by now if you left that investment alone. So if something happened there, what is it? What is it about Bitcoin? What is it about the cryptocurrency, which is the name for all of these digital assets, from Bitcoin to Ethereum? And I'll be talking a lot about Ethereum. There's hundreds of others, but there are just a few that you should be paying attention to, I believe. And I think Ethereum is the one you should be paying attention to. Invest in Ethereum, and I'll tell you why, and I'll explain the significance of Ethereum shortly. But I wanted to talk about this transformation from centralization, where we are interacting with institutions and companies and corporations, to a model where we're going to be shifting to a person-to-person economy. So take Bitcoin. If you were to transfer money to someone without Bitcoin, you would have to deal with a bunch of banks interacting. You'd have to wait a few days, pay the fees, and trust the banks to hold your money, to transfer the money, and so on. With Bitcoin, in less than 10 seconds, you're able to immediately transfer your wealth, your assets, to another person or to an institution, or make a purchase through the blockchain. And it's really important to understand what the blockchain is. So, with a centralized model, the internet today is structured in a way that you have centralized servers with databases storing your information. So you go to Facebook and you interact, and everything is stored on a centralized server, on sets of centralized servers controlled by the company, and the company then has access to everything that you're saying. Now along comes the CIA and the FBI, and they request access to everything you're saying, and then they have it. So the centralized model is the opposite of freedom. With the blockchain, the data is stored not on a centralized database, but it's stored on thousands or hundreds of thousands of other systems, on people's computers basically, in a way that nobody can access the data unless you have the key, unless you have the right passwords and combination of mnemonic codes and everything else to alter that data. It's there forever. It's replicated around the world forever. So that's why Bitcoin is unstoppable. That's why the governments haven't stopped it, and that's why it's been so popular, because it's you can store your wealth outside the reach of anyone. No one can get into it unless you're careless with your own passwords. So along comes Ethereum, and Ethereum takes the same model using the blockchain, again, the distributed database across all those computers, which is secure and run by the people. And it says, okay, let's not just build a way of storing money and transferring money, but let's build everything. Let's make it possible to do contracts between people, smart contracts. Let's build a whole new internet where all of the websites, all the content is stored on the blockchain outside the reach of any centralized authority. So you can pretty quickly start to imagine things like obviously financial applications, but things like social media applications where people are able to interact outside the ability of the governments to monitor things. This is the decentralized model, and this is the future to everything. Contracts between people perhaps no longer are going to require a government to hold that piece of paper and lawyers to be involved. It can be made directly and stored on the blockchain. So what's interesting is that this is a massive shift, and I think if you're not getting this, you're going to miss out. It's really imperative. It's as big of a change in the world as communism moving to whatever came after that in Eastern Europe and in the USSR. People who didn't get it missed out. People who didn't start a company, people who didn't privatize, who didn't take advantage of the changes were left behind. Their money was worth nothing. And I think what's going to happen in the coming years is if you're not investing in Ethereum, ETH, if you're not investing at least in Bitcoin or Coinbase or Litecoin or these digital assets, at least some small portion of your wealth, you are going to be poor, because what's going to happen is Ethereum is going to 10x or 100x within 10 years. And if you don't have that, your money is just not going to be worth that much to compared to those people who do. So that's the first step, is just go to Coinbase, get an account, buy some Ethereum, whatever you can afford. Store it not on the centralized Coinbase server, store it on a digital wallet, and keep track of it. You have to take responsibility. This is about personal responsibility in this new future. And that's what I want to talk about. There's one piece missing. I'm talking about technology, but technology will do absolutely nothing to bring about any meaningful change. It never has. Great inventions like the internet or the atom splitting and everything else leads to disastrous results because we don't make a spiritual, enlightened transformation based on that new technology that's available to us. And so what has to happen with this blockchain revolution, with the decentralized revolution, with the decentralized future, which is already happening, it's already happening. Do some research. This is the reality. And if you're living in the world of depending upon a job, thinking that your college education is going to be worth something, thinking that you can trust your banks and that your government is protecting your freedom, I think that you're delusional, and I think that you're missing out on the reality that exists. And so what has to happen is a massive awakening, a spiritual awakening, where people escape the fear of the ego, where they make a shift from the material world, the materialistic material world, to the non-material truth. The Course in Miracles says that that which is true must by definition be unchanging, must be eternally true, and if it changes, then it's not truth. So there is no truth to be found in the material world because material always changes. What we need to do, and what thousands and thousands of people around the world already are doing, is identifying with the space, the unchanging stillness. We are identified with the present moment, realizing that that nothing ever has existed in the past, nothing ever will exist in the future. We are escaping the ego, which is all about being special and being different from other people, being separated in a decentralized future, you need to be able to interact with other people, not on the basis of competition and separation, but on the basis of trust and oneness. You have to be able to sometimes trust people who are anonymous. You don't know their names. You realize that a name is nothing but a government-issued mechanism for controlling a life form, which is you. And what is that life form? Are you your mind? Are you your thoughts? Or are you what happens when you're not thinking? Are you that stillness? Are you the feeling? Are you the observing? Are you the loving person? Or are you the worrying mind? And so those who understand, those who are able to merge the spiritual awakening with the realization of decentralization, the identification with decentralization, to run your own business, to protect your own money and your own decentralized wallets, to open yourself to people with trust and love, with a giving nature, you are going to be experiencing abundance. Financial abundance, spiritual abundance, abundance in every area of your life. And I'm going to be talking a lot about how to combine this, to merge this reality, that we have this opportunity right now. There have been spiritual teachers throughout the thousands of years of human history who've never had an opportunity for people to actually identify with their power, their God-like essence, their oneness, and to create a new world, a new economy, a new way of connecting that is based on principles of love and escape from the ego. And I would recommend that you do some research on Ethereum. I would, even more than that, recommend that you begin a spiritual practice, and I started where you are, maybe where you don't have any spiritual faith or belief system, and you believe only in what science can measure and what's material, and what you will learn as you begin to explore Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now. Maybe you read my book, Belove, How to End Pain by Escaping the Ego. There are thousands of ways of accessing enlightenment, salvation, but it's not going to be, you're not going to figure it out in your mind. It's not going to come out of your mind. It's going to come out of the eternal wisdom that's been written about and spoken about for thousands of years. It doesn't nullify science and materialism, but what you will see is that there's a dimension that you've been blind to that is truth. And as you begin to identify with that dimension, and as you begin to find the courage to claim your own independence, your freedom from authority, you're going to realize that the government's not going to let you be free. There's nothing you can do that isn't taxed, regulated, or illegal. There's nothing you can do that somehow the government doesn't get involved in. And so, you have to begin to ask questions. I think people are getting fed up with the amount of control. I think that the system is collapsing, and it's going to happen. It is happening because we can't even register for an email account without going through two-step verification. You can't sign up for anything without somebody trying to figure out your identity and how to track everything you're doing. And then we all know through WikiLeaks that the CIA and everybody else has been spying on everything. They want to get their business in everything and control everything. And I think that's going to be the end of the corporate capitalist system as we know it. People are fed up, and we are very much ready for this new reality. Get on board, because that's where it's going, and if you want to prepare your family for a future, you might think about homeschooling, at least talking to your children about spirituality, and by all means develop some kind of practice where you're reading or listening to something. Maybe you go to the gym or you're sitting in traffic, so listen to an audiobook. Download Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now, and pay attention. Make an Ethereum investment, and you begin to feel reality shifting. You're not alone. There are thousands of us going through this, and we're going to overtake decentralized economy, and we're going to break the chains and we're going to be free. I'll be talking a lot more about this.